All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about critical chain project management today, but I want you to think about this in a totally new way. Let's forget the dense textbooks for a minute and instead think of this as a brand new operating system for your entire organization. An OS that's built from the ground up to handle the kind of complexity that you, as an engineer, deal with every single day.
So let me ask you a question that probably keeps you up at night. Why does it feel like your projects are always running late? I mean, you're surrounded by brilliant people, everyone's putting in the hours, working their tails off, and yet things still slip. Deadlines get pushed. It's so frustrating. Well, what if I told you the problem isn't your people? What if it's the system itself? A bug in the very operating system you're all using to get work done.
So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll talk about the multi-project chaos that I'm sure you all recognize. Then, we'll get into how to find the one single thing that's holding everything back, the system constraint. After that, we'll cover how to protect our projects with buffers, manage everything visually with something called fever charts, and finally, how to turn this whole thing into a system that learns and gets better over time.
Okay, section 1, the multi-project chaos. And this is a scene that's probably all too familiar for many of you. This is where we identify that bug in your current operating system.
Just think about a typical day. Priorities are shifting constantly, right? People are getting pulled off one task to go fight a fire on another. Your key experts are always double booked. It feels like a constant state of emergency. This isn't just a little inefficient, it's a recipe for burnout, and it just grinds real progress to a halt. This chaos, that's the bug we're here to fix.
So how do you even begin to fix that kind of chaos? Well, you don't try to fix everything all at once. That never works. Instead, you find the one thing that's limiting the entire system. This is the first and most important step to getting things flowing smoothly.
And this brings us to a really powerful idea called the theory of constraints, or TOC. And it's actually pretty simple. It says that in any complex system, like your R&D department or your entire company, there's always one single bottleneck that determines the output of the whole system. You know, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. It's the same idea. So our job isn't to make everyone busier, it's to find that one constraint and focus all our attention there.
And you know what's cool? Finding this constraint is often way easier than you think. You just have to look at the data. If you plot the average workload across all your different teams, the bottleneck just jumps right out at you. See that big bar at the top? The one with that huge pile of work stacked way over its capacity? Bam! That's your system's constraint. That's the thing you need to focus on.
So once you know where the bottleneck is, the next move is to synchronize the whole pipeline to its pace. We stop just dumping new projects into the system whenever they're ready. Instead, we strategically stagger their start times based on what our constraint can actually handle. The goal here is to create a steady rhythm. Never starve it for work, but never, ever overload it. And the absolute golden rule. The people at the constraint work on one thing at a time. No multitasking, period.
And here you can see exactly what that looks like. It's like a single track railway. You let one train, one project, get all the way through the bottleneck before you let the next one enter the tunnel. It completely eliminates the traffic jams and the constant stop and start that absolutely destroys productivity. It creates this calm, predictable, and most importantly, fast flow of work. And the impact of just this one change? It's not a little 10% improvement we're talking about here. It's massive. Most organizations that do this see a 2 to 3 times increase in the number of projects they complete. Let that sink in. Not by working harder or longer hours, but just by creating intense focus right where it matters most.
Okay, so we've got a smooth flow through our bottleneck. That's huge. But we all know projects are messy. Life happens. Uncertainty is a given. So the next part of our OS upgrade is all about how we deal with that uncertainty and protect our due dates. The old way of doing things, the way most of us were taught, is to build a little bit of safety, a little padding into every single task estimate. The problem is that hidden safety almost always gets wasted. CCPM completely flips this on its head. It says, let's get rid of all that hidden padding. Let's use aggressive but achievable estimates for each task, and then let's take all that safety time we removed and pull it together into one big shared buffer for the whole project. Here's exactly how that works visually. We squeeze out all that individual task safety, and we put it all in one place, right at the very end, just before the final due date. That's our project buffer. We also put some smaller feeding buffers on the paths that feed into that main critical line. See the difference? We've stopped trying to protect every single little task and started protecting what actually matters, the entire project's due date.
It's a way more intelligent way to handle uncertainty.
So now we have a solid plan, and we've got buffers to protect it. But how do we track things day to day? How do we know if we're on track or if we're in trouble? We need a really simple way to make the project's health visible to everyone.
And this is your new best friend. It's called a fever chart. It's super simple. Along the bottom, you have how much of the project is complete. And up the side, you have how much of your project buffer you've used up. If you're making lots of progress without burning through your buffer, you're in the green. All good. If you're burning buffer faster than you're making progress, well, you're heading into the yellow and then the red. It's a dead simple, at-a-glance health check for your project.
And the best part is, this scales beautifully. You can take every single project in your portfolio and put them on one chart. At a glance, anyone from the CEO down can see the health of the entire system. You know exactly which projects are okay and, more importantly, which ones are in the red and need help right now.
And this visual clarity, it leads to a ridiculously simple but powerful rule for everyone on the team. When you finish your work, you don't need to wait for a manager to tell you what to do next. You just look at the board and you pull your next task from the project that's the reddest, the one in the most trouble, that you have the skills to help. It creates this amazing self-organizing system where everyone is always focused on the system's biggest priority.
Okay, so we've got flow and we've got a way to manage our projects visually, but this is the last piece of the puzzle, and honestly, it's the most powerful part of this new operating system. It's about turning all this into a true learning system.
And that requires a major mental shift. We have to stop seeing buffers as just padding for when things go wrong. Buffers aren't just protection, they are diagnostic tools. Every single time a project eats into its buffer, the system is sending up a flare. It's telling you, hey, something unexpected happened right here. Come look. It points you directly to your biggest opportunities for improvement. So when a project starts turning red, we don't just throw people at it and hope for the best. We ask why. Why did we burn that buffer? Was the information we got from the other team incomplete? Was the key person unavailable when we needed them? Did we hit a technical problem we didn't expect? By digging into the root causes every single time, we can systematically eliminate the sources of delay so they don't happen again on the next project.
And when you combine this relentless focus on flow with a built-in engine for continuous improvement, well, the results are just staggering. It's not uncommon for organizations with a mature system to hit 95% due date reliability, or better. Think about that. Nearly every project finishing on time, predictably.
So let's just recap the whole system upgrade. It's 3 simple steps. First, you synchronize. You find your system's constraint and you create a smooth, steady flow of work. Second, you protect. You use those aggregated buffers in the visual favor charts to manage your day-to-day work. And third, you improve. You use the buffer data as a signal to drive real continuous learning. So that's the core of it. Thinking about your project management not as a set of rules, but as an operating system you can actually upgrade. And I'll leave you with this to chew on. If you were going to install this upgrade in your world right now, what is the one single bottleneck you would put all your focus on first? That's our deep dive into critical chain project management.